Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rachah Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Psalms, the 45th chapter, a song celebrating the king's marriage. And this here is dealing, really with Yahweh Shai. Okay, there are parts of it that you can see, as it applies to him. But as it says here, to the chief musician upon Shoshanim for the sons of Korah, Maskil, a song of loves. Okay, let's read this in the NLT. It says, for the choir director, a love song to be sung to the tune Lilies, a psalm of the descendants of Korah. My heart is inditing a good matter. I speak of the things which I have made touching the king. My tongue is the pen of a ready writer. Okay, let's read this in the NLT once it loads up. Okay, let's try that again. All right, I'll just read it from my phone because the blue letter, acts up sometimes. But anyway, this is Psalms chapter 45, verse 1. In the NLT, it says, beautiful words stir my heart. I will recite a lovely poem about the king, for my tongue is like the pen of a skillful poet. Which also looking at it spiritually, our tongue or our mouth, our words, applying this to us, the prophets, is like the pen of a ready writer, right? It's ready to write, and that's why we continually speak, right, concerning the Lord. What is it saying in Isaiah 62? I believe in 6, ye that make mention of the Lord, keep not silence. Right, verse 2, it says, thou art fairer than the children of men. Grace is poured into thy lips. Therefore God hath blessed thee forever. Okay, and this is once again dealing with Yahweh Shai. Okay, as it says, thou art fairer than the children of men. Right, you basically, describing a physical appearance to be, more desirable, right, better looking than the others. Let's put it that way. And as it says, grace is poured into thy lips, right, which is likened unto the gospel that was preached, by the Lord. Therefore, the Lord hath blessed thee forever. Verse 3, gird thy sword upon thy thigh, O most mighty, with thy glory and thy majesty. Okay, and that's in Revelation, right? It likens it onto a bow, right? Revelation, the 6th chapter, right? That the Lord had, that he went about to conquer it. Here it mentions it as a sword. Verse 4 says, and in thy majesty ride prosperously because of truth. So how is the Lord going to ride prosperously, all right, in his majesty, right? That's him coming with the chariots. Okay, and it says prosperously, right? Let's get that real quick here in the book of Mark, chapter 13, verse 26. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds, right? That's how he rides upon the wings of the wind with great power and glory, right? That's that majesty, right? Riding prosperously. It says because of truth and meekness, okay, and righteousness, and thy right hand shall teach thee terrible things. And this is dealing with the destruction that the Lord is going to bring, right? When you go into the teach, all right, it says thy right hand shall teach thee terrible things. Let's look into a few of these words. So teach thee, right? It says here to throw, to shoot, right? To cast, to shoot arrows. Okay, so the terrible things that are going to be taught or shot by the Lord are those those beams, right? Those lasers from the chariot, the destruction that he's going to bring. And it mentions, right, your right hand, right, shall teach these terrible things, right? Your right hand is going to shoot these arrows. Let's get a quick precept here in the book of Habakkuk, chapter 3, and we'll start at verse 3. It says here, God came from Teman, and the Holy One from Mount Paran, Selah. His glory covered the heavens, right, which is dealing with the chariots, and the earth was full of his praise, and and his brightness was as the light. He had horns coming out of his what? His hand. And we'll go into that word horns. It says, and there was the hiding of his power. You see, so now this is written in a dark saying, but it's referring to the destructive power, which we call like the laser beams that are coming from the Lord's chariot. When you go into the word horns, it says here horn, right? Of strength, flask, horn of rays of light. Okay, so that ray of light is the same kind of ray of light that you read about in Second Esdras, the 13th chapter, right? It was mixed with fire and tempest and so on. And as it says, out of thy hand, which is really, not talking about his physical hand, but from a part of his chariot. Okay, see how it says the axle? That's the, if you look at what an axle looks like, and you look at let's type that in here. Axle. That's that wheel, that circular part. Okay, this part right here. Okay, now you imagine, looking up at a chariot. If you see something like what's this? No, joint moving kind of slow out here. Say UFO. Let's just type that in there. See that little bottom part right there? If you're looking at it, right, depending on the angle you're looking at it from, that's that part where the rays of light come from. You can literally see it even in this picture here. Okay, so going back to Habakkuk, this verse is really describing the lasers, right, from the Lord's chariot. There was a hiding of his power. Okay, and so coming back to Psalms, remember it says that thy right hand, okay, out of his, it says, what does it say in Habakkuk? He had horns coming out of his hand. So really it's the destruction, the beams that the Lord is going to be bringing, shooting out of his chariots. It literally says to teach these to shoot. So what are those terrible things? The destruction. In Isaiah 66 and 15, it talks about that, right? Matter of fact, let's go there real quick too. Isaiah 66 and 15. For behold, the Lord will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many. So those things that those terrible things are going to be the destruction he brings. Okay. Also in one more, Revelation 19 and 11, right? It says, and I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, right? And he that sat on him was called what? Faithful and true. And in righteousness doth he judge and make war, right? Going back to Psalms 45 and 4, as it says, and in thy majesty ride prosperously because of truth and meekness and righteousness. Okay, and thy right hand shall teach thee terrible things. Verse 5, it says, thine arrows are sharp in the heart of the king's enemies. So who is the king's enemies? The enemies of the Lord. And what would these arrows be likened onto? Right, those lasers coming from the chariots. Now you're also going to have at this time the missiles being shot off, right? But these are coming, as it says, from his right hand. So it's likened onto somebody who's, if you go to Revelation 6, the image is that there's somebody on a horse with a bow in his hand, shooting actual arrows, right? But the way that it's actually going to look in real life is a man in a chariot shooting laser beams. It says, whereby the people fall under thee. You see that? Because what? Because of the destruction he's bringing, they're going to fall, right? They're going to be destroyed, and the rest are going to become subservient unto him. Verse 6, thy throne, O God, is forever and ever. The scepter of thy kingdom is a right scepter, right? And a right scepter meaning a right rule, a righteous rule. Because a scepter represents rulership. Thou lovest righteousness and hatest wickedness. Therefore God, thy God, hath anointed thee with the oil of gladness above thy fellows. You see that? So the God here is referring to Yahushai. Thy God is the Most High. He hath anointed thee, okay, with the oil of gladness above thy fellows. Hence, Hamashiach, the anointed. That's literally what Hamashiach means, the anointed. Verse 8, it says, all thy garments smell of myrrh, and aloes and cassia, out of the ivory palaces whereby they have made thee glad. All right, this is just describing, the majesty, the scent of the Lord. Remember, it's written in a poetic way as well. So this is, when you describe somebody like this, you're glorifying them. They smell good. They have like their garments smell like the top, best scents. Okay, it says here, verse 9, the king's daughters were among thy honorable women. Upon thy right hand did stand the queen in gold of Ophir. And the king's daughters and the queen here are representing the elect. Okay, the elect, remember, as sons of God, who is our father, the king of the universe. Now, it likens them onto being women, right? The scriptures talk about the daughters of Zion, but it likens them onto being women because when you go to Revelation, let me see, it might be 19, right? And also even before that, let's get 2 Corinthians chapter 11 verse 2. Oh, whoops. Okay, verse 2, it says, and this is Paul speaking, right, to the church in Corinth. For I am jealous over you with godly jealousy, for I have espoused you to one husband, that I may present you as a chaste virgin to Hamashiach. See, so they were a part of the body, right? The believers, the elect, which are likened as a whole symbolically to being the wife of the Lamb. That's why he mentioned being presented as a chaste virgin to Hamashiach, not being defiled with the philosophies of the world, but being pure, in the ways of Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai. So Revelation 19:7, let us be glad and rejoice and give honor to him, for the marriage of the Lamb is come. What's the marriage of the Lamb? Well, the Lamb is Yahushai, and the marriage is the union of Yahushai and the elect. See, and his wife hath made herself ready. So who is his wife? The elect. Okay, it's a symbolic, saying to represent the elect, those that have been made ready to be presented as a chaste virgin to Hamashiach. Did it not say in Revelation 14 that they are virgins? It says, and to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white, for the fine linen is the righteousness of the saints. See that? So if it's the righteousness of the saints, then who would be the one arrayed in it? The saints. And in particular here, the elect. Okay, so let's go back to Psalm 45 and 9. So as it says, the king's daughters were among thy honorable women. It's talking about the elect here, being with the Lord. Upon thy right hand did stand the queen in gold of Ophir, which is basically describing the elect as being glorified. Right, when it mentions the daughters and the queen. Verse 10, hearken, O daughter, and consider and incline thine ear. Forget also thine own people and thy father's house. So once again, who is the daughter representing? The elect, okay, or Israel. And them hearkening, who are they hearkening to? The prophets, right? The teachers the Lord has set up to teach and to lead and to guide them. Now, when it mentions forget your own people in thy father's house, that's basically the old way, right? The old way of living, putting off that old man, because now you're going to be under the dominion, the authority of your spiritual husband, right? Which here is the Lamb. So you got to put away. That's why the Apostle Paul said to present you, right, as a chaste virgin. So you got to be prepared, and in order to do that, you got to leave off the old ways. Okay, verse 11. It says here, so shall the king greatly desire thy beauty. All right. As a matter of fact, let's get a quick precept too. Here in the book of Romans, chapter 12, verse 2, because it mentioned about forgetting, right? It says, forget thine own people and thy father's house. In real life, that's a woman leaving the way she used to live, right, with her family, with her parents, and moving on to a new life through that marriage. Okay, but here the old way is referring to your old ways of living, right? Being in the world. And now renewing your mind, right? Romans 12:2, and be not conformed to this world, right? And that would be likened unto thine own people in thy father's house here in Psalms. But be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. See, that's the hearkening that we read, right? Hearken, O daughter, and consider, and incline thine ear. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Okay, so that's that's what the elect are doing, right? That's what the elect of Israel are doing in inclining and basically moving on, right, to be with Yahushua. Let's also go to the book of Luke, chapter 18, and we'll start at 28. Okay, it says here, then Peter said, lo, we have left all and followed thee. See, so Peter, right, being one of the elect, a part of the body that makes up the bride, would be likened onto, a part of, once again, the body that makes up the woman, the daughter, to consider, right? So what's he saying? We have left all and followed thee. And he said unto them, verily, Yahushua's response, verily I say unto you, there is no man that hath left house or parents or brethren or wife or children for the kingdom of God's sake. Right? What does that say? Forget thine own people, okay, and thy father's house, who shall not receive manifold more in this present time and in the world to come, life everlasting. So continuing on, verse 11, it says, so shall the king greatly desire thy beauty, for he is thy Lord, and worship thou him. See, when you hearken and you leave off that old life, the king is going to greatly delight thy beauty, right? And the scriptures also tell you, because the Lord delights. Who does the Lord delight in? Proverbs chapter 16, verse 13. Righteous lips, right? Righteous lips are the delight of kings. And who's the ultimate king? Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, right? But it says here, the king, where is it at? So shall the king greatly desire thy beauty. So what beautifies the elect? This righteousness, that's the robes. Matter of fact, gotta pull it back up. Going back to Revelation 19. And while that loads, let's go here real quick, finishing up Proverbs 16 and 13. Righteous lips are the delight of kings, and they love him that speaketh right. See? So likewise, the Lord loves him that has righteous lips, and those that have righteous lips are righteous, right? They're in the spirit of the Lord. So going back here, remember Revelation 19 and 7, right? Let us be glad and give honor to him, for the marriage of the Lamb is come, and the wife hath made herself ready. See? And it was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white. And what is that? For the fine linen is the righteousness of saints. So when it says here that the king, so shall the king greatly desire thy beauty, that's that fine linen, okay, which is the righteousness. For he is thy Lord, and worship thou him. Verse 12, and the daughter of Tyre shall be there with a gift, even the rich among the people shall entreat thy favor. Okay, and Tyre here is a representation of the nations, right, that are going to be just an example of one of many nations that are going to be subservient to us, right, and seek to please us. That's the shall entreat thy favor. Verse 13, the king's daughter is all glorious within, her clothing is of wrought gold. Right, once again, going back to what we just read in Revelation 19 about making herself ready and being clothed, which is the righteousness of the saints. Verse 14, she shall be brought unto the king in raiment of needlework. The virgins, her companions that follow her, shall be brought unto thee. So who is the she? The elect. Okay. And then the virgins, as it mentions, going back, which are also part of the elect, but here you can liken them to the prophets, going back to Revelation 14 and 4. 144. Right? It says, these are they, and this is talking about the 144,000 when you read up in the first verse. These are they which were not defiled with women, for they are virgins. And this means they weren't defiled not with physical women, but with the ways of the world, left hand wisdom. Right? She's also likened unto a woman, but a strange woman. These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits unto God and to the Lamb. See that? So those are the virgins, right? Her companions, the companions of the woman, right? Of the daughter that follow her shall be brought unto thee. So we're all going to be joined with the Yahushai. That's going to be the teachers that are of the elect, and also the non-teachers that are of the elect. Verse 15, with gladness and rejoicing shall they be brought. They shall enter into the king's palace. And that's when we're joined with the Lord, right? We're joined with the Yahushai. Let's get a precept on that. First Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 17. It's all about the precepts. First Thessalonians 4 and 17. Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds. And who's going to be there with them? Paul's going to say it. To meet the Lord in the air, right? That's that brought and enter into the king's palace. Because who's in the king's palace? The king. So we're going to be joined with the Lord. And 2 Ezra 2, right, covers the details of that. So shall we ever be with the Lord. And it's the last, like 5 or 7 verses in 2 Ezra, the second chapter. It covers that, right? So shall we ever be with the Lord, be in the king's palace. And then he's going to bring us to the kingdom. Instead, verse 16, instead of thy fathers shall be thy children, whom thou mayest make princes in all the earth. Okay? And I'm going to read that in the NLT. Not sure why it's moving so slow, but, we'll just give it a second. And if it takes a little long, I'll just pull it up on my phone. All right. Let me pull it up. This is Psalms 45 and 16. In the NLT, it reads, your sons will become kings like their father. You will make them rulers over many lands. Okay, and what does it say? Right, because once we're joined onto the Lord and we're in the king's palace, this is Isaiah chapter 60, verse 22. Unless the blue letter just completely is given out on me right now. Okay, it doesn't seem to be. So Isaiah 16:2, right? And this is dealing with Israel. One shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. Right? I, the Lord, will hasten it in his time. See, in the scriptures mentioned that we shall be a nation of kings and priests. So let's go here, right? Because what we read here in the NLT of verse 16, it said, your sons will become kings like their father. You will make them rule over many lands. Okay, let's also go to the book of Revelation. Or actually, let's get this one here in Peter. All right, First Peter chapter 2, verse 9. It says, but ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood and holy nation. So that's going to carry through, right? Through our descendants. A peculiar people, that's that royal priesthood. A peculiar people, that ye shew forth the praises of him who hath called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. And in Revelation 1 and 6, it says that he has made us what? Revelation 1 and 6. Right, and hath made us, this is dealing with the elect, right, which ultimately is going to apply to the whole nation. But it says he has made us kings and priests unto God and his Father. To him be glory and dominion forever and ever. See, so going back to Psalm chapter 45, now finishing off in verse 17. I will make thy name to be remembered in all generations. Therefore shall the people praise thee forever and ever. And we'll get one more precept on that, and then we'll close it. This is Isaiah, to support what we just read, chapter 61, verse 8. All right, let's pull it up on here. Isaiah 61. Yeah. Isaiah 61, verse 8. And it reads here, "For I, the Lord, love judgment. I hate robbery for burnt offering, and I will direct their work in truth, and I will make an everlasting covenant with them." Verse 9. And their seed shall be known among the Gentiles, and their offspring among the people. All that see them shall acknowledge them, that they are the seed which the Lord Yahweh hath blessed. You see that? I will make thy name to be remembered in all generations. Therefore shall the people praise thee forever and ever. Okay, and that it brings us to the end of the book of Psalms, the 45th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.